Today we have a topic on Ezekiel chapter 47. Ezekiel 47, it's one of the prophecies of these last days. And many have not dwelt on this topic of Ezekiel chapter 47. So we are going to study it. And if we go to Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 1.
Afterward, he brought me again unto the door of the house. And behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. For the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from under, from the right side of the house, and the south side of the altar. Then brought he me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me about the way without into the utter gate, by the way that looketh toward eastward. And behold, there ran out waters on the right side. And when the man that had the line in his hand went forth eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters. The waters were to the ankles. Again, he measured 1,000, and brought me through the waters, and the waters were to the knees. Again, he measured 1,000, and brought me through. The waters were to the loins. Afterward, he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over. For the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that would not be passed over. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Then he brought me, and caused me to return to the brink of the river. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees, on one side and on the other. Then said he unto me, These waters issue out toward the east country, and go down into the desert, and go into the sea, which being brought forth into the sea, the waters shall be healed. And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the waters shall come, shall live. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because these waters shall come thither, for they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from Engedi even unto Englaim. There shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds, and the fish of the great sea exceeding many. But the mighty places thereof and the marishes thereof shall not be healed. They shall be given to salt. And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow trees for meat, whose leaves shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of the sanctuary, and the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. Thus says the Lord God, this shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit the land, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions, and ye shall inherit it, and one as well as the other, concerning the which I lifted up mine hand to give it unto your fathers, and this land shall fall unto you for inheritance.
Right. For us to understand this prophecy, you've seen a lot of things being said, but we don't know what is being said. So we need to know this prophecy of Ezekiel chapter 47. But for us to understand it, let's go to Zechariah chapter 13, verse 1.
Verse 1. In that day, there shall be a fountain opened to the house of David, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanliness.
Right. So we have a day where there shall be a fountain open to the house of David. 2 things are mentioned: sin, uncleanness. Which one is the house of David? When Christ came, he was in the lineage of David, or of Jesse, the father of David, isn't it? Now, we are seeing at the end, there is people of that lineage, of the house of David. You understand? We have been talking about the 144,000. Where are they coming from? From the 12 tribes of Israel. First of all, what do they have a fountain open to them for sin and uncleanness. Now we want to know what, therefore, a sin is. What is sin? Let's go to 1 John chapter 3, verse 4.
Verse 4.
Yeah.
Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law.
Right.
For sin is the transgression of the law.
Right. So what is sin?
Transgression.
It's breaking the law. But we have been told two things: sin and uncleanness, which is opened to the house of David. And we know the sealing process goes first to the 144,000, isn't it? And this sealing process makes them sealed, so that we saw on the other subject, the seal is a seal of immortality. Yeah? So that they do not die, isn't it? Now, one thing is they have to have their sins forgiven. So God has opened this fountain for sin and clean. There's something that's going to clean them, isn't it? The fountain opened unto the house of David for sin and uncleanness. You understand? Now let's see what is uncleanness. Because there's two things that these people should be having. They should be having one, sins pardoned, and also uncleanness. What is uncleanness? Go to Leviticus 15, verse 1.
Verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When any man hath a running issue out of his flesh,
right?
Because of his issue he is unclean.
Right. So what is uncleanness? Diseases. We can hear a lot of diseases around us, isn't it? But God has opened a fountain for sin and uncleanness. And if you catch on to that fountain, you will be pardoned your sins, and at the same time, you will be cleansed.
Amen.
That thing has a double effect. One, pardoning your sin. Two, cleansing. That has been opened to the house of David for sin and uncleanness. Now let's hear. We saw that when that is cleaned in Zechariah 13, verse 1, when the fountain is open, what is the result?
And it shall come to pass in that day,
Yeah?
say the Lord of hosts, that I will cut off names of the idols.
No, on verse 1.
In that day,
Yeah?
there shall be a fountain open to the house of David,
Right?
and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem,
Right.
for sin and for uncleanness.
If you go to Israel, you find David was the king, isn't it?
Yes.
And out of where he was ruling was Jerusalem. But there was a house of David. And also a house of what? Of the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The ones that he was ruling, isn't it?
Yes.
So we have these two sections. The house of David and also the inhabitants of Jerusalem. So that's purely the whole house, which judgment begins in the house of God. It's in two sections. It's got the house of David and also inhabitants of Jerusalem. These are the ones whose fountain has been opened for, isn't it? To cleanse them, one, to pardon sin. But what starts first? The pardoning of sin. And after the sin is pardoned, what happened? The cleansing, isn't it? Now, let's see. The house of David shall be what?
In that day, there shall be a fountain open to the house of David, and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, for sin and for uncleanness. And it shall come to pass in that day, said the Lord of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they shall no more be remembered. And also, I will cause the prophets and the unclean spirits to pass out of the land.
Now, there is a text which says, the house of David shall be as God. It's Zechariah go to chapter 8, I think.
12.
Huh?
12 verse 8.
12 verse 8. Go to chapter 12 verse 8. Yeah?
Verse 7.
Right?
The Lord also shall set the tents of Judah first,
Right?
and the glory of the house of David, and the glory of the inhabitants
So
of
we
Jerusalem.
have what is called Judah first and the house of David.
Yes.
Do you understand? They will be cleansed first And what?
Sorry. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah.
Right?
In that day
Right?
shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
Right?
And he that is feeble among them,
Right?
in that day shall be as David.
Right.
And the house of David shall be as God.
So, and that day when they are cleansed, this house of David given a fountain for sin and uncleanness. Right. So, the house of David, yeah, has been given a fountain for sin. And what happened to that fountain? It makes the house of David as God. Did you hear that? You read that?
In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem.
Yeah?
And he that is feeble among them.
Right?
And that day shall be as David.
Right?
And the house of David shall be as God.
Right.
As the angel of the Lord before them.
This is what this fountain is doing. This is the sealing process. That's why we say this seal is a seal of immortality. What is it giving you? It's giving you to be like God. Huh? What? Is it true?
Yeah.
Go to Obadiah 21, 1 verse 21. When they come to the Mount of Zion, what do they come? They don't come like 144,000, but they have a name. Obadiah 1 verse 21.
Verse 21.
It's one chapter, isn't it?
Just one chapter.
Verse 21.
So, and saviors
Right.
shall come up on Mount Zion.
What are they called when they come from?
Saviors.
They are, what has made them saviors? The fountain which has been opened. When we saw in Zechariah chapter 13 verse 1, there is a day which this fountain is opened for the house of David. And they will be like God. And what do? They will come on Mount Zion as saviors. Now we want to study this fountain, isn't it? I have a question which is on UL 224. Listen to that question, yeah?
Must we wait until we are translated before we eat of the leaves of the tree of life?
You remember when Adam and Eve were taken out of Eden? Why? What was the reason for taking them out of Eden? Lest they will touch the tree of life and be immortal sinners and stay as sinners. So because when they took that fruit, yeah, which was forbidden, the devil said, if you take it, that day you won't die. You understand? But what would make them not die is the tree of life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because once they will take the tree, because when they were taking the tree of life, they were taking it as people who were holy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, because they have taken the forbidden tree, and if they went to the tree of life, they will be forever sinners. So God had to take them from the Garden of Eden out so that they don't touch the tree of life. What happens when you touch the tree of life? You won't die. You won't die, isn't it? So God did not want them to die being sinners. Yeah?
Yes.
So, for them not to die being sinners, he wanted them to have a second chance. But he wanted them to, I have heard people say, we will eat the tree of life in heaven. But the question is saying, must we wait until we are translated before we eat of the leaves of the tree of life? The one, that tree that was forbidden, so that Adam and Eve don't taste it. And people say, we will taste it when we are in heaven. But the question is saying, should we really wait for heaven?
No.
No.
Now, you see this fountain which is being opened. Yeah? Go to a quote again in UL 224, page 3. Paragraph 3. That knowledge that gives you eternal life, or that gives you the fountain opened for the house of David, that knowledge will make you live eternal. Let's hear the knowledge.
The knowledge
right?
that comes from God
Right?
is the bread of life.
That's the bread of life.
Amen.
Yeah. It's also, in a way, it's also a bread of life. It's a seal of immortality. It's a bread of life. Yeah.
It is the leaves of the tree of life.
That knowledge also is a leaf. Yeah.
Of the tree of life.
Right?
Which are for the healing of the nations.
Right? This is what God is going to have. You are going up and down everywhere looking for healing of certain ailments. But God has given a tree of life or a fountain opened in figure of tree of life, which is the knowledge of the sealing of the 144,000. Isn't it?
The current of spiritual life thrills the soul as the words of Christ are believed and practiced. Thus it is that we are made one with Christ. The experience that was weak and feeble becomes strong.
Right.
It is eternal life to us if we hold the beginning of our confidence firm unto the end.
Right. Did you hear on the sealing process on the 144,000 had 3 seals? God, New Jerusalem, and the glory. And John also says it in Revelation 3, verse 12.
Verse 12. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God.
Right.
And he shall go no more out.
Right.
And I will write upon him the name of my God.
Right.
And the name of the seat of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name.
Right. Did you see? He shall go no more out. What is he writing? 1, the name of God. 2, the name of New Jerusalem, city of my God coming out of heaven, isn't it? And 3, what is it? New name. Yeah? And you will go no more out. It means that's a seal of immortality. You will never change.
Amen.
Yeah? So now let's read again from quotation from Sister White. What it is to eat the tree of life. 5 BC, Bible commentary. 1135.8. What is it, this eating of the tree of life?
Whoso eateth my flesh
Right?
and drinketh my blood,
Right.
says Christ,
Eh.
hath eternal life.
What is that? Did you say, just go to the next, to the Bible, on John 6, verse 48. We were talking about the daily, isn't it? That we take the bread in the morning and in the evening, isn't it? And the wine in the morning and in the evening, isn't it? And this is the daily that was taken away in Daniel chapter 8, verse 10, isn't it?
Yes.
Taken away so that you and I don't receive the fountain of the house of David. Now let's hear the taking of this bread and wine. What is it to you and me?
John 6, verse 48.
Verse 48.
I am that bread of life.
Christ says, I am the bread of life. Now imagine by faith, you are taking that bread. You understand? What are you taking? Christ's body. By faith, that is it. And what about the wine? Christ's blood. By faith, that is it. Would you die?
No.
Now listen to the verse.
I am that bread of life.
Right?
Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness.
Right?
And are dead.
Right. Do you see that? When they were in the wilderness, they ate manna. And what happened to them? They died. But manna was coming from heaven. But they ate it and died. But what about this one?
This is the bread.
This is the bread.
Which cometh down from heaven.
Right?
That a man may eat thereof and not die.
That's why the devil took it away. This is the secret which has been given to the 144,000 in the last day. So that they eat and not die.
Amen.
Did you hear that? Now here, Christ says, whoso eateth my flesh. Let's go back to UL. UL 220, I mean not UL, 5 BC, 1135. 8th paragraph. Yeah? Whoso
eateth my flesh
Right?
and drinketh my blood,
Right?
says Christ, hath eternal life.
Right?
And I will raise him up at the last day.
Right?
For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed.
And people, because it says, I will raise him, you think somebody is going to die and be raised. No, it means raised from the Telestia
Yes.
to
Celestia.
Celestia. Do you understand? You are raised from your natural body to a celestial being. This is what will raise you, isn't it? Now here is saying, whoso eateth the bread and wine has eternal life. Now it's not, that's why the devil had to take it away during the Dark Ages. He took away the daily. Why? And God is bringing it last days to the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem as a fountain to the house of David.
Amen.
Must we wait to be translated so we can take the tree of life? So in other words, when you take the daily, you are now back to the tree of life.
Amen.
You are back to Eden.
Yes.
To take the tree of life so that you don't taste death.
Amen.
That's why the seal is a seal of immortality. Take it by faith. That will enhance your translation. When Christ comes, you will find us fully sealed.
Amen.
And part of the sealing is the knowledge of the three seals in conjunction with the daily.
Amen.
You understand? And what whosoever, for my flesh,
Yeah. For my flesh is meat indeed,
yeah,
and my blood is drink indeed.
yeah,
He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me and I in him.
that's why if you go to every church, they take the bread and wine in the morning. It's only the time that has to be adjusted.
Amen.
And if we profess that we just sit and sing and pray and sleep without the fountain of the house of David, let's not fool ourselves. And then what else?
As the living Father hath sent me, and I live by my Father, so he that eateth me, even he shall live by me.
Right.
It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing.
So what is this raising out? It's quickening the spirit.
Amen.
That's the raising. It's not the raising of the dead being resurrected. No, it's the quickening of your spirit so that you comprehend the things of God.
Amen.
Like it was with Christ.
Amen.
That's why you now tend to be like God. Whoever will hear your words, it's a save of life.
Amen.
While you are taking the daily.
Amen.
Huh?
It is the spirit that quickeneth,
Right?
the flesh profiteth nothing.
Right.
The words that I speak unto you,
Right.
they are spirit and they are life.
So what does that bread and wine do? Quicken the spirit. But no, nothing you see in the flesh. It profited nothing. But what is the spirit? What you utter. That's why God says, I will give you words that no one can gainsay in any argument.
Amen.
I can see people who start an argument, whether on Facebook or on anyone, but they have no clue or any verse to support what they. Why? Because they are not drinking from this tree of life. Yeah? And what?
It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life.
Right?
This is the eating of the fruit of the tree of life.
Right. Shall we wait for a translation to eat the tree of life? Better catch on to it.
Amen.
Because the sin that Adam and Eve had been recompensed by the death of Christ.
Yes.
It's paid for. He paid the sin, isn't it? Now we go back to Eden. How do we go back to Eden? Fountain of the house of David first. Cleansed first. Or judgment in the house of God first. If you are in the house of God, you don't want. Because obviously, one has a seal, one doesn't have. Ezekiel 9 says, one has a seal, one doesn't. Right? And when he goes to slaughter, he says, slaughter all those without. Come not near. So it will be whoever wants. Catch on. It's your choice. That's your choice. What you choose is what you will get. Isn't it? So here we have this fountain. And we see that it cleans one, the sin. That's why without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sins. So that's why we take the daily. For the shedding of blood is now in the wine and the bread.
Amen. Amen.
So that our sins are taken. That's the house of David, given this fountain. Yeah? To quicken your soul. Huh? To lift you and uplifting the plan of salvation.
Amen.
Yeah? You understand? It's the restoration. Let's go to 2 Esau 290.2.
Thou shalt represent my person and act like God by requiring obedience to thy commands,
Right?
and by punishing disobedience with such punishment as none but God can inflict.
This is what Moses was told, isn't it? Uh-huh.
To which end thou shalt have my omnipotent assistance. This is the commission to the church in the time of the harvest.
In the time of the harvest, what is the commission? Thou shalt represent my person. That's what was done to Moses. Was representing who?
God.
God, when he was leading, right? And act like God by requiring obedience. What did he require? He wrote the whole 5 books.
Yes.
They require your obedience. That's why it says in Hebrews 10, verse 28.
He that despised Moses' law
Yeah.
died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses.
So was he requiring obedience? He died without mercy under two witnesses. 2 or 3 witnesses, as long as you despise Moses' law. And it is the feast of Moses' law.
Yes.
He was also given all the feasts, all the 10 commandments, all the statutes and judgments on Mount Sinai. You despise Moses' law, thou shalt die without mercy. Under 2 or 3 witnesses. That's what the verse says. And what? Go back to the quotation.
Thou shalt represent my person and act like God by requiring obedience to thy commands, and by punishing or disobedience with such punishment as none but God can inflict.
Oh.
To which end thou shalt have my omnipotent assistance. This is the commission to the church in the time of the harvest.
Right?
The apostle Peter was vested with such divine power when he said, Thou is not light unto man, but unto God.
Right?
Ananias hearing these words,
Do you see the
fell
last,
down and gave up the
the
ghost.
church in the last section has got the powers that were already in the church, in the early Christian church. The early Christian church, they were keeping feasts.
Yes.
They were keeping 10 commandments. They were keeping, and people don't know that it's well after the cross, they were still keeping the feast. Now let's see, after the cross, give me one, already the one that you know, Acts chapter 2, it says it was the day of Pentecost, and another one, Acts 20.
Yes.
Right?
And we sailed away from Philippi
Right?
after the days of unleavened bread,
Uh-huh.
and came unto them to Troas 5 days, where we abode 7 days.
And,
And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together
okay,
to break
okay.
bread,
Let's see another one,
16.
16. Verse 16 on that chapter.
for Paul had determined to sail by Ephesus,
Right?
because he would not spend the time in Asia, for he hasted, if it were possible for him to be at Jerusalem the day of Pentecost.
You see, he was in Asia. And he was hastening so that on the day of Pentecost, he is where? In Jerusalem. They were keeping feasts, isn't it?
Yes.
Where were they keeping?
In Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. And which one? The other verse?
18:21.
18:21. It's just to run down for a doubting mind. And because you are just told, oh, they were nailed to the cross, they were done away, they were done away. Hey, that language, done away. Done away. And yet they were being kept by the disciples well after the cross.
Yes.
And you are done away, done away. You know, if you are ignorant, you cannot argue. And what, let's hear that verse.
Verse 21. But brethren, Pharaoh said, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Jerusalem, but I will return again unto you, if God will. And
Right.
he sailed from Ephesus.
Right? And the other one? The one that let us keep the feast, it's Paul.
1 Corinthians.
1 Corinthians 5 verse 8, yeah. 5 verse 8.
Therefore, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness.
What is Paul saying? Let us keep the feast. And some say, Paul is my teacher. That's your teacher. Let us keep the feast. Not with old leaven. So he was a feast keeper. You can see all the feasts, they were being kept, isn't it? They were only taken away at Dark Ages, well after the cross. If you know Dark Ages is 538 AD, the cross was just AD 31.
Yes.
So God said, my sheep, they are dying because of lack of wisdom, lack of knowledge. You don't read, you don't want, you are waiting for someone to say, turn away, and then you are still, now, go back to Ezra. So the church in the last section, which has the house or the fountain of the house of David, which has been empowered, will be as powerful as the early Christian church. What was the early Christian church could pronounce death. Let's read there. Yeah? Ananias and Sapphira. You know Ananias and Sapphira?
Yes.
When they lied. What happened?
They fell down and gave up the ghost.
Right? Thou hast not lied.
The apostle Peter was vested with such divine power. He said, Thou hast not lied unto man, but unto God. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost.
So what were the disciples like? They were like God, representing God unto men. You see? So that when they lied to them, they just pronounced, you have lied unto God. And he was dead. And the wife also the same. Yeah? That was the power empowered. The church which had been given the fountain of David. Yeah? Because Christ was in the house of David, isn't it? And the followers were in the fountain of David. Right? So, this fountain, we saw it in Zechariah chapter 13, is able to wash. Yeah? And this is how the church has been made and be sealed. Yeah? Sealed with the fountain of the house of what? Of David. You understand? Now, once it is sealed, that's when it has to go to Ezekiel 47. So Ezekiel 47 is not talking about the church. It's talking now about the loud cry. Huh? The loud cry doesn't go to the church. The loud cry goes to the world, to the other churches as well. So that's Ezekiel 47. We were dwelling in Zechariah 13 of the sealing of the 144,000 of the church, of the house of David, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. You understand? Now it is going out to the greater multitude. That's Ezekiel 47. You understand? From where we are reading, Ezekiel 47, start from verse 12.
Verse 12. And by the river, upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaf shall not fade,
right?
Neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed.
Right. Do we see the trees? This is the river flowing there. This tree and the other trees by the side, isn't it? So now that river is coming from the house of God, going to the inhabitants of the world. That's the loud cry.
Amen.
Yeah? The river is flowing there. Now, because the church is now purified, that's why we said in Isaiah chapter 66, go to Isaiah chapter 66. What will happen when Christ comes? That's Isaiah 66, verse 15.
Verse 15. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh,
So
and the slain of the Lord shall
the
remain.
coming of the Lord now is coming just to make sure all those who did not receive the seal are wiped. It's Ezekiel 9. And what happened to those who received the seal? they escape.
Savior.
Yeah? But why are they being slaughtered? Why is that slaughter? When Christ comes, why is he slaughtering people? And what? Say by fire and by sword. Why? Go to the next verse.
They that sanctify themselves.
Who are they? Because they were sanctifying themselves. And what?
And they purify themselves in the gardens.
They were saying, we are the holier. We are the, God is this is the church. We'll never what? We'll never sink, isn't it? That's what we are saying. They that sanctify themselves behind
one tree.
One tree. What is a tree?
It's a leader.
It's one person they are following. If that person does not say keep feast, they will never keep feast. If that person does not say kneel, they will never kneel. If that person is not whatever that person says, so that person became like God, but against the fountain of the house of David. So when Christ comes, he wipes those who did not receive the seal. We saw it in Ezekiel 9. Let's see Ezekiel 9 to prove what I'm saying. He went in the church and slaughtered those who did not have the seal. It's there. Read. Verse 4.
And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the man, that sigh and that cry, for all the abominations that be done in the midst thereof.
So the sealing starts in the house of God. Is it? Go in there and set a sign, a seal, and then
slay utterly old and young.
right? You see, the other one follows. What happened? Those who did not have the seal, right?
So, and to the others he said in my hearing, Go ye after him through the city and smite. Let not your eyes spend in the heavy pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children, and women, but come not near any man upon whom is the mark.
You see, only those with the mark were not touched. You understand? And it's someone who say it's not physical, it's spiritual. But you will get it when you go to 5T, page 211. 5T, page 211.
Here we see that
Right.
the church, the Lord's sanctuary,
Right.
was the first to feel the stroke of the wrath of God.
It's commenting on that verse. Was the first to feel that wrath of God. Yeah?
The ancient man,
The ancient man.
those to whom God had given great life.
Because on Ezekiel 9 it says, start with the ancient men before the altar. You understand? So these are the ancient men because God gave them all the light. And what happened?
The ancient man, those to whom God had given great light,
They were given
and who
great
stood
light.
as guardians of the spiritual interests of the people,
Yeah?
had betrayed their trust.
They betrayed their trust.
They had taken the position that we do not need to look for miracles or
Right.
manifestation of God's power as in former days.
Right?
The times have changed.
Times have changed. God cannot come in and kill people like what he did in Noah's time or like what he did in Sodom's time. Times have changed.
These words
These
strengthen
words,
their unbelief.
it strengthens
And
their
they say,
unbelief. They say,
The Lord will do not go.
God just stays up there.
Neither will he
Doesn't do anything
He
to
is
them.
too merciful to visit his people in judgment. That's peace and safety.
Peace
the
and
cry
safety.
from men who never lift up their voice like a
That's what Paul says. When they say peace, sudden destruction.
upon them.
Yeah?
That's peace and safety. As the cry from men who will never again lift up their voice like a trumpet
The
to show
spirit
God's people.
the spirit of prophet said they will never raise their voice. Never. Once they are against the fountain of the house of God, they will never. And
That's peace and safety is the cry from men who never again lift up their voice like a trumpet to show God's people their transgression and the house of Jacob their sins. These dumb dogs that would not bark are the ones who feel the just vengeance of an offended God. Men, maidens, and little children
right?
all perish
They
together.
all perish together. This is physical, isn't it? Now, this is Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15. This is what God is coming to do. I'm seeing people ready to go on the cloud. No, this incident first. This incident first, before this river extends to the Gentiles. That's why the sealing was done first in the house of God. So that when it is finished, when it goes to the Gentiles, there is no one who rejected, who will come and influence the Gentiles. Huh? Because if he doesn't do this, when the loud cry goes, and I'm seeing people talking about 666, it won't affect us. Because it will be sealed. And those one who is not sealed will be dead. Isn't it? So what will happen? Then the message is carried by the 144,000 who escaped this slaughter. Isaiah 66. And what happened? Why were they, it says, behind one tree? Did you hear? And what? Where you left behind.
Behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind.
Right?
To render his anger with fury and his rebuke with the flames of fire.
Yeah?
For by fire and by his sword will the Lord bleed with all flesh. And the slain of the Lord shall be many.
Right?
They that sanctify themselves.
Why were they slaughtered? They were sanctifying themselves
And
behind the
themselves
gardens.
in the
Gardens is
behind one tree in the midst.
one tree in the middle. Is
It
the
is
one that
one's flesh.
they all. I have never seen that. Really? Well, let's continue.
Eating swine's flesh
Do you see health and temperance?
and the abomination
Do you see health and temperance?
and the mouse
Do you see health and
shall
temperance?
be consumed together, saith the Lord.
Because it had been given to the house of David for sin and cleansing. Do you see? When you say you stop eating meat, you are cleansing yourself. Become a vegetarian, you are cleansing yourself from diseases. Take bread and wine, you are cleansing yourself. That's why Paul was told, take wine because you are ill. What was it in the wine? The wine which we take is the red wine. Isn't it?
Yes.
What is in red wine? What is the composition of red wine? It's got water is called hydrogen.
Yes.
Hydrogen, what is the component? H2O. Hydrogen and oxygen to make water. Do you need hydrogen? Yes. Do you need oxygen? Yes. So when you're taking water, what are you taking? Oxygen and hydrogen.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Are we learned?
Yes.
And then when it comes to this, we are down. Now, what are you taking from wine? It's got H2O, so it got oxygen and hydrogen. And what else is there? It's got iron. So when you take it twice a day, every day, in the daily, what is it giving you? Iron. And what is used for iron? What is the use of iron? To replenish the blood cells. So are you, most of the diseases, they are coming because you have lack of iron. Yeah? Lack of water. A lot of diseases come from lack of water. You can be a diabetic because of dehydration.
Yes.
Huh? There's no water. If you don't drink water, the sugar content goes high. Is it true? So you need water to make it down, isn't it? So you are giving yourself life by taking this wine, the red grape. That was it, that's why it was prescribed by God for us to take daily. To feed our blood with iron and oxygen every day. And hydrogen. It's a very important compound in health. So what is giving you eternal life? These components for sin and uncleanness. That's why they were told to take iron or to take water or to take wine, because it's got all these components daily for sin and what? So this will give you immortality, or it will sustain you from illnesses.
Yes.
Is it? Because why should you die? You die from illness, isn't it? That sustains you from illness. Yeah? And what else? The health and temperance.
Yeah.
Now, I had one thing. Let's go to if you want to see what I'm talking in really serious sense, go to 209. Start with CT 60 227.2. 60. It's a bit longish, but if it will 60 227. Wonderful is the work. Listen.
Wonderful is the work which God designs to accomplish through his servants, that his name may be glorified.
Right?
God made Joseph a fountain of life to the Egyptian nation.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Through Joseph, the life of that whole people was preserved.
Right. The fountain of life preserves life.
Yes.
Through Daniel,
Right?
God saved the life of all the wise men of Babylon.
It was the fountain of life which God did to Daniel.
And these deliverances were as object lessons. They illustrated to the people the spiritual blessings offered them through connection with the God whom Joseph and David worshipped.
Right.
Okay. So through his people today,
Right?
God desires to bring blessings to the world.
Right?
Every worker in whose heart Christ abides, everyone who will show forth his love to the world, is a worker together with God for the blessing of humanity. As he receives from the Savior grace to impart to others, from his whole being flows forth the tide of spiritual life. Christ came as the great physician to heal the wounds that sin had made in human family. And his spirit, working through his servant, imparts to the sin-sick suffering human beings a mighty healing power that is efficacious for the soul, for the body and the soul. In that day, says the scriptures, there shall be a fountain open to the house of David,
Yeah?
to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness.
Right?
The waters of this fountain contain medicinal properties
Right.
that will heal both physical and spiritual infirmity.
Right. These waters flowing, they are now coming from the house of David, flowing this mighty river of Ezekiel 47. Huh? What do they contain? Medicinal properties.
For both.
What do they contain? The daily, the feasts. When he says none of these diseases shall we have, it's keeping the statutes. None of this is there in Deuteronomy. We should be talking about all this when when we are scared of all these diseases around us. We should be talking about this, isn't it? To so that God opens this fountain. So anyone who catches on it will receive. Exodus 15 verse 26 is changed.
And said, if thou wilt diligently hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God,
Right?
and will do which is right in his sight,
Right?
and will give ear to his commandments,
Right?
and keep all his statutes.
Do you see what is being kept? It's not the commandment only. The statutes, we say the statutes are feasts. The statutes are the daily. Those are called statutes, isn't it? These were given on Mount Sinai. Now, if you do all the commandments and statutes diligently,
I will put none of these diseases
none of these
which I
diseases.
brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee.
This is what God is saying on that verse, isn't it? So, when we want to worship Him in purity and in cleanliness, yeah, and we want Him to wipe all our sins and will leave us cleansed, He says, follow His commandments and His statutes. He will put none of them around you.
Amen.
Yeah?
Yes.
And now go back to the quotation which you were 60. It says, from the fountain that flows, this mighty river seen in Ezekiel's vision.
From this fountain flows the mighty river seen in Ezekiel's vision. These waters issue out toward the east country,
Right?
and go down into the desert.
Why?
And go into the
Why towards the east country? And goes down.
into the desert.
Why? When we are saying we have to go how many times to the east? To keep the feast. And the waters go towards. Listen.
They issue toward the east and go down into the desert and go into the sea,
Is it the desert where you go 3 times a year?
which being brought forth into the sea, the waters shall be healed.
Right?
And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the rivers shall come, shall live.
Right?
And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat,
Right?
whose leaves shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed.
Right?
It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months.
Right?
Because the waters they issued out of the sanctuary, and the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine.
That is your medicine. Did you hear that? And what? Such a river.
Of life,
Right?
and healing.
Yeah?
God designs that by his power working through them, our sanitarium shall be.
That's our hospital. That is our sanitarium. What is the sanitarium? The river flowing. Now I'm saying it's flowing now to the Gentile world from the sealing process in the house of God first. And now it's going. When it is going to the world, it's the loud cry. It's also anyone who partakes of that fountain will be living, will have life eternal. You understand? So what is flowing? For sin and uncleanness, the fountain which already went to the house of David, yeah? And now to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and now flowing into the Gentile world. Anyone who catches on to it will have eternal life, yeah? So you should know by the end of the lesson, what is this river? It's the information sealing process to the 144,000. After the sealing process from the 144,000, goes that same information to the Gentile world. Now go back to Isaiah chapter 66. So we saw when Christ comes, he removes those who did not partake of that river. 66. And then because they had one man, one tree in front of them who was controlling their spiritual life. Who, when God said, do this, the men say no. And they followed that man. And they eating swine's flesh. This is all about health and temperance. They had nothing to do with the health and temperance. Following that man.
They shall be consumed together, said the Lord.
This is what God is warning. And then,
for I know their works.
I know their works.
And their thoughts, it
Their
shall
thoughts.
come.
Yeah.
That I'll gather all nations and tongues.
After that, they have been consumed, isn't it? Who has been left? Those with a seal. And what happens to them?
And it shall come.
Right?
Sorry. For I know their works and their thoughts, it shall come.
Right?
That I will gather all nations and tongues.
Now you see now we are going into the Gentile countries now. After the 144,000 stand on Mount Zion with Christ, isn't it? And they received the empowering of the latter rain. Yeah? They sent the same fountain of the house of David. This river now, you saw when we read it, the river started in small cubics, until it was full that any man, no one will. We were told even as another parable that it's the kingdom starts like what? A mustard seed, which is a tiny thing you can't see with the naked eye. It blows easily. I've seen it myself. But when you put it on the floor, on the ground, it becomes a massive tree and no tree can surpass it. That's the kingdom. That's the river. It's flowing into the Gentiles now because the judgment is finished in the house of God. It's now going to the greater multitude. That no man can what? Can number. That's where. Go to Ezekiel 47 verse 12.
Verse 12. And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat,
right?
Whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of the sanctuary. And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine. Thus says the Lord God, this shall be the border whereby ye shall inherit the land, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph shall have 2 portions.
Now you see, on Revelation chapter, in Ezekiel, verse 12 again, repeat it.
And by the river upon the bank thereof, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for meat, whose leaf shall not fade,
right?
Neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of the sanctuary. And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine.
Right. Let us go to 2 SR 291.
Wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate, said the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you.
Right.
For this you know that no woman
That is 2 Corinthians, chapter 6, verse 12. So this river, what it has left a church called the House of David. Huh? It's the house of, the church triumphant. You know already this church which we are is called church militant.
Yes.
It's commingled the wheat and tares. But when it becomes militant, that's when it is saying the church now shall go forth. Yes. Fair as the moon. Clear as the, that's the house of David. You understand?
Yes.
So it left the church now in the state of the house of David. Cleansed, no sin, triumphant. Now going to the greater multitude.
Amen.
You understand? And then we were told in Isaiah chapter 66 that the escaped ones are now being sent to Tarshish, Pool, Lad. Read Isaiah 66. Now God starts to gather all nations after he has purified the church. First the church is purified, and next he starts to call the whole Gentiles into the kingdom. Amen. Right? 66 verse
19. And I'll set a sign among them.
Now start from verse 17.
Verse 17.
Verse 18.
Verse 18. For I know their thoughts and their works. Sorry. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues.
Right.
And they shall come and see my glory. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations.
Right.
To Tarshish.
To
Pool. To Lad.
Now, when they are going now to the nations, what are they bringing to the nations? This stream, this fountain from the house of David, going now to the Gentiles for sin and uncleanness. And what?
To Tarshish, to Pool, to Lad that draw the bow.
Right.
To Tabal, to Javan, to the isles afar off that have not heard of my fame.
Right.
Neither have seen my glory.
Right.
And they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles.
Right. Now it's the Gentile world. Yeah.
And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord.
Those that have partook of this river of Ezekiel 47, they are brought where?
For an offering unto the Lord, out of all nations, upon horses,
right,
chariots, and in litters, and upon mules, and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem. Now where are they being brought? To the kingdom. That's why the river was going now full. You understand? The river was now going what? Full. And what is this river? Going full now. On Ezekiel chapter 47, what is this river? What is the waters? Revelation chapter 17. Verse 15, it says, peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. You see, the way they are collected, it's like a river coming, getting full. Now we saw, after the church has been purified with a fountain of the house of who? Of David. Then the same message goes to the Gentiles. What are the Gentiles? Is this river flowing? Do you understand? The river flowing and getting full. And what is the river receiving? The fountain from the house of David. Going to the river.
Amen.
Yeah? Collecting the river. Increasing in volume, in cubits. Now let's read Ezekiel 47. And now that we have a plan and we've seen where things are going, isn't it? Now we understand Ezekiel 47. From verse 1.
Verse 1.
Listen to it, yeah?
Afterward, he brought me again unto the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. For the forefront of the house stood toward the east, and the waters came down from the right side of the house, at the south side of the altar. Then brought he me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me about the way without unto the utter gate, by the way that looketh eastward. And behold, there ran out waters on the right side. And when the man that had the line in his hand went forth eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me through the waters. The waters were to the ankles.
Right? So which are these waters? It's people. So the people will come. When this kingdom is established, the 144,000 are on on Mount Zion. And they are sent, Isaiah said, they are sent to Tarshish, pull, lad, that draw the bow, and they are brought to the kingdom, bit by bit. You understand? What is this one coming to Ngikiri, to Jerusalem? What is it? It's the Gentile forces. And this is the water. It increasing and increasing. Because the water is the multitudes, nations, tongues, kindreds coming. Let's go to Matthew chapter 25.
Matthew 25.
Verse 31.
Verse 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory.
Right?
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another.
So what brought these nations? What brought these nations? These coming from the house of God, the house of David, going to collect the what? The mighty river. The mighty river is the Gentiles coming in front of Christ. And what happens? He takes the good ones to the right, the bad ones to the left. This is the mighty river being sifted. And the one, where do they go?
And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, all ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
Right?
For I was an hungered, and he gave me meat.
What do you inherit?
The kingdom.
I said this happened when Christ comes to establish the kingdom. The mighty river of Ezekiel 47 comes, and bit by bit the mustard seed grows. Birds come to fill in that tree and fill the whole world. That's what happened, isn't it? And this is what happened when Christ comes in front of him. Shall be gathered all the nations, mighty nations, tongues, and people. But he has already assigned the 144,000 to collect all this. We saw in Isaiah 66. You understand? So the mighty river continues to fill up, pouring into the kingdom. Yeah? Yes. Let's hear some interpretation. Isaiah 14, verse 14.
Verse 14. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
That's the devil saying that, isn't it? Where? Read on.
Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell.
No, start from 13.
For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north.
Right, wait there. Right, let's go to the mighty river. Go to 2 SR. So the throne of God is in the sides of the north. 2 SR 291, third paragraph. Go where it says, afterward, for this one.
Afterward, he brought me again unto the door of the house. And behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward.
Right.
For the forefront of the house stood toward the east. And the waters came down from the right side of the house and the south side of the altar.
Right.
As the waters came from the south side of the altar and then went toward the east, it clearly shows that they proceeded from the north, which symbolically denotes that whatever the meaning of the waters may be, they came from the throne of God, for it is in the sight of the north.
Right. 292, the first paragraph.
292.
While Ezekiel's attention
was turned to the interior, where he first saw the water, he says, then brought him in out of the way of the gates northward, and led me about the way to the outer gate by the way that looketh toward eastward. And behold, there ran out waters on the right side.
Right?
And when the man that had the line in his hand went forth eastward, he measured 1,000 cubits, and he brought me to the waters, and the waters were to the ankles. Again he measured 1,000 and brought me through the waters. The waters were to the knees. Again he measured 1,000 and brought
That's the
me.
verse is reciting.
And afterward he measured 1,000, and it was a river that I could not pass over. For the waters were risen, waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. And he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Then he brought me and caused me to return to the brink of the river. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees on the one side and on the other side. Then said he unto me, These waters issue out toward the east country, and go down into the desert and into the sea. Which being brought forth into the sea, the waters shall be healed.
Right?
And it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the rivers shall come, shall live. And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because the waters shall come thither. For they shall be healed, and everything shall live whither the river cometh. And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from En-gedi, even unto En-eglaim. There shall be a place to spread forth nets. Their fish shall be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea exceeding many. But the miry places thereof and the marshes thereof shall not be healed. They shall be given to salt. And by the river upon the bank thereof, on the side and the other side, shall grow all trees for meat whose leaves shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his months, because their waters they issued out of the sanctuary. And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine.
Right. So let's hear the interpretation thereof. It says, therefore, these waters. No, in SR. 292.2.
Therefore, these waters represent a very great multitude,
Right.
which no man could number, that shall be healed from sin and disease, saved in the time of the loud cry,
Right.
through the ministry
Of the house of David.
the church.
Right?
As Ezekiel could not swim this river, the symbol is in perfect harmony with Revelation 7, verse 9. A
Great multitude which no man can number.
of all nations and kindreds and people and
Yeah.
tongues, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands.
So Ezekiel could not swim that river. So even John could not number them. Could not count the number of the Gentiles. Because even God says, I will simply his. But with his people in the house of David, he says, I have an argument. I had a controversy. But to the Gentiles, he says, I'll just hiss and they come. So he has no problem with Gentiles. He has problem with the house of David. Because a lot of arguments. We need a lot of quotations from spiritual prophecy and from Bible. But the Gentiles don't need that. Just go with the Bible. Let's go and worship God 3 times a year. They believe it straight away. And then 295. 2 SR 295, first paragraph.
Note that the reason the waters are healed is because they are brought forth into the sea.
Right. You see
The
that?
mighty river represents the saints from the earth.
Right?
Then the sea must be a symbol of the sinless world's inhabitants in the universe of God.
Right. Do you see there the rivulets? Small rivers there. You know, the other planets out there are composed of people with this fountain. Yeah? They keep feasts. You remember when the devil went to heaven, before Christ died, the devil could go back and come back. You remember in the time of Job, he went to represent the earth because he saw there's no one who had gone to represent the earth. Because other planets had sent somebody to represent, isn't it? So he went to represent the earth. That's why God asked him, what are you doing here? Where are you coming from? He says, oh, I've been walking up and down the earth. That's why he said, I've got Job. If I needed anyone, I would have brought Job. That's what he meant, isn't it? Now, all these other 11 planets have this river, this fountain of the house of David. They are eating of these leaves. Yeah? They are eating of these leaves of life. That's why they are alive, they don't die. And God is, by all this, is trying to make sure the earth also receive those blessings. Starting first in the house of God, and then they, in the loud cry, put the same information to the Gentile countries. You understand? So here we are being told that these, read from where you, if the mighty river represents the saints from the earth, then the sea must be a symbol of the sinless world's inhabitants in the universe of God. Yeah? As the river is brought into the sea, it denotes that the saints shall come in contact with the eternal nations who know not sin. Yeah? So the rivers come in contact with the eternal nations. You understand? And being brought forth, we must be healed before we meet each other. We must be healed before we meet the other planet. For we sinned through Adam. If Adam didn't sin, the whole earth would be having people who are sinless. And we could be together with the 11 planets. But because they sinned, so we are separated from the 11 planets. But we will meet them when we are now eating the tree of life. It is to translate us or to quicken us, the spirit, so that we can. That's why Sister White said when he met Enoch in other planets, he says, she was told, you and the 144,000 will be given the privilege to come to these other nations. Why 144,000? They have ate of the tree of life, of the fountain of the house of David. You understand? And here it says, the effects of this symbol. That's why I want you to read. The effects of this symbol.
Of this symbol prove that this is the last section of God's church.
Right?
The church that shall be translated without tasting death. Get ready, get ready, get ready.
So when the Gentiles come into the kingdom, who do they unite with? The 144,000. And they become part of us.
Yes.
They are no longer called Gentiles.
No.
Because the name Gentile means unbeliever. So heathen, isn't it? But they're no longer heathen. They become part of the 144,000, enjoying the tree of life. And it becomes a mighty river. Inside that, in Revelation chapter 9, I think it's 9, where the army of God will be found to be 200 million. You understand? And the waters, read the waters.
The waters that make up this mighty river represents a
the multitude of saints
endowed with the healing power from the throne of God.
Right.
For the word says, everything shall live whither the river cometh.
Right, in verse 9. It says, everything shall live
whither the river cometh.
Where the river is coming from. When this river, which is the mighty multitude of saints, wherever they go, whatever they say to them, and if the people start practicing, they join the river. And they are quickened up and become a mighty river. Yeah, but it started with the house of God first, and then later extended to the Gentiles, so that they also join in the house of God. This is initially what happened when God sent Moses to take the Israelites out of Egypt. They were supposed to stay in Egypt as a peculiar nation, in Israel as a peculiar nation, which will tell the other nations to keep what God had told them to do. That's the main reason why they were selected, to disseminate their information to the whole world. And so that if the whole world also joined in, that's what. So that's why God is saying that, go to PK 7:13. Prophets and Kings 7:13. And says that which God purposed.
That which God purposed to do for the world through Israel, the chosen nation.
When he chose them from Egypt, he wanted to do for the world. They were a sample which will disseminate like it is, so that the whole river or the whole world will be saved. They were a sample. So now what is he doing? He's doing it till judgment begins in the house of God. Like what he wanted to do with Israel. Yeah?
That which God proposed to do for the world through Israel, the chosen nation, he will finally
do that.
through his church on
Because
earth.
now there's no more Egypt. The plan was, he started Eden, the plan was distorted by the snake. The plan of taking them from Egypt was distorted because we saw them going to Babylon. Because the plan was already intercepted. Now he's saying, no more will there be any interception when he starts with the church. Never mind those who are refusing. Those who are going to agree are the one that he's going to start with. That which he purported to do with Israel. What were they supposed to do? Learn these statutes and the commandments and everything, and be a peculiar nation, and introduce all those to the whole world. Now God did not do it with them because we saw them going to Babylon. Now we are also seeing some who are refusing within us, going also to Babylon. But God has got a numbered few. Read that one. God has got a numbered. He is going to do it. Yes. He wanted to do it with Adam and Eve. The devil intercepted. He wanted to do it with the Israelites when they went out of Egypt. The devil intercepted. But he will do it with now in the last days with you and me, to be the church triumphant and do what he purported to do.
Never has the Lord been without true representatives of this earth who have made his interest their own.
The devil can try to intercept it, but God will always have someone. Someone will still, it says, whether you all agree to shut up, not to say this message, you will raise up stones. Amen. You will hear someone there talking about it. And what?
Never has the Lord been without true representatives
on
this earth who have made his interest their own.
They make his interest their own.
These witnesses for God.
The witnesses for God. Unnumbered. 144,000 is a number. They are numbered amongst the spiritual Israel.
And to them will be fulfilled all the covenant promises.
Which ones are the covenant promises? In Genesis 17, let's see the covenant promises. All of them will be fulfilled in the 144,000. Which one? Genesis 17.
And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him.
So Abram is the father of all covenants. They are coming. Listen.
And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name anymore be called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting.
All the generations of Abraham.
To be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land whither thou innest out.
Was he given the land?
Yes.
As
all
a covenant?
Yes.
Did he stay there? Now, that which God purported to do with the Israelites, he will do it with the church today. He was given a covenant. It's a covenant. Isn't it?
And the Lord and God said unto Abram, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generation. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised.
All the 144,000, they are numbered few. Like PK says, he has got them in the last church. He has got them. They will be circumcised. Never mind those who refuse, but those who are numbered will. You understand? And what else?
They shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. And it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you. Every man child in your generations, he that is born in thy house, or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant.
Everlasting. And let's go to Galatians chapter 3. Start from verse 27.
For as many of you as have been baptized into Christ and have put on Christ, there is neither Jew nor Greek.
Now, you are baptized into Christ. No Jew, no Greek.
There's neither bond nor free.
No slave.
There's neither male nor female.
No woman, no what, everyone
are
is the
all
same.
one in Christ.
Everyone becomes the same. That has nullified everything.
And if ye be Christ,
If he be Christ,
then are ye Abraham's
then
seed,
now you join in.
and heirs according to the promise.
You join in to be the covenant people. Heirs according to the promise. And you have to go to Genesis 17 to see the promise of the land, circumcision, Sabbath keeping, statute keeper, like Abraham. Otherwise, this is what the covenant means, isn't it? You say, we are not of the old covenant, we are of the new. That's the new in Galatians. The Galatians says, instead, when the new covenant comes, it's written in your heart.
Amen.
That's what it says. This is the covenant. That I will write my laws in your heart. So it's not changing anything, but it's transferring where the law was. When it was in the paper, it's now in your heart. 33. Jeremiah 31, verse 33.
But
the new covenant. Listen to the new covenant.
But this shall be the covenant
This shall be the covenant.
that I will make with the house of Israel.
Right.
After those days,
Right?
saith the Lord,
That's the new covenant.
I will put my law in their inward parts.
Instead, if it was written in the Bible, now the law, where is it?
In the inward parts,
If the feasts were in the Bible, where are the feasts?
in the hands,
Everything, it didn't change anything, but it transferred where they were. From a physical book to a heart. So that when you think, you are thinking 10 commandments, and you are thinking feast, statutes, you are thinking statutes daily, everything. It's in your heart. It's your heart now to remind you that this is a Sabbath. It's your heart to remind you this is the third hour I have to take my daily. It's your heart to remind you this is a Passover. It's your heart to tell you that this week I can't keep pagan. I will pick God's feast. So it's your heart. It's no change. The same old one is now placed in the heart. Instead, it's more powerful than it was. Okay. So let's go. It says now, where was I in that chapter? This healing, 2 SR 295.2. This healing is not indefinite, but because we have seen people going and saying, I'm healed, but in a couple of months starting all over again, isn't it? So that healing wasn't permanent, was indefinite. It's just an indefinite, but it could come back. You understand? If something is indefinite, it's not permanent. Read.
this healing is not indefinite,
Right?
but permanent.
Right.
For we read, and it shall come to pass that everything that liveth, which moveth, whithersoever the river shall come, shall live.
Right. So after the angel had measured,
After the angel had measured 3 times 1,000 cubits,
Right.
says Ezekiel, and he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen this? Then he brought to me and caused me to return to the bank of the river. Now when I had returned, behold, at the bank of the river were very many trees, on the one side and on the other. And by the river upon the bank thereof, said the angel, on this side and on that side shall grow all
you see the trees, this side and that side, and the river is there.
whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall the fruit thereof be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to his month, because their waters they issue out of the sanctuary.
Right?
And the fruit thereof shall be for meat, and the leaf thereof for medicine.
Right. So let's hear the interpretation. The value of the leaves.
The value of the leaves and the fruit of these trees is identically the same
Right?
as the tree of life according to Revelation 22 verse 2.
We saw the tree of life in the 22 verse 2. Read it.
And on either side of the river,
Revelation.
and on either side of the river
Right?
was there the tree of life,
Right?
which bare 12 manner of fruits, which yield which yielded her fruits every month,
Right?
and the leaves thereof were made for the healing of the nations.
Mm-hmm.
The significance is that the church of God
The house of David.
is endowed with power from the throne
Right?
to offer life eternal.
Whatever they say to you will bring you eternal life. And like it was with the Christian church. When they said to Ananias, you have lied, he dropped. When they you remember Elijah? When he went to that Zarephath woman who was going to eat and die. But because he gave Elijah food, the basket became full. Even the daughter who was about to die, lived. That's endowment which Elijah had from God. Now this last church will be endowed with the same power. And
the significance is that the church of God, or the house of David, is endowed with power from the throne to offer life eternal, with no test of death to those who accepted the truth.
Right.
And are willing to become a part of this mighty ring.
Right. So the sealing process is a seal of immortality. So you are endowed with life eternal. That's why it says the 144,000 won't taste death.
This is the only section of God's church that has been granted the authoritative gospel of permanent healing and life everlasting. The word declares, he that is feeble among them,
Right.
that day shall be as David.
Right.
And the house of David
Shall be as God.
as the angel of the Lord before them.
That's Zechariah 12 verse 8. So what else could it mean? Right? We are just now enjoying. We now know where it is going, isn't it? Yeah. Now let's just enjoy all that, whatever it was in it, and proceed to 296.2.
And there shall be a very great multitude of fish, because the waters shall come thither. And it shall come to pass that the fishers shall stand upon it from En-gedi, even unto En-glaim.
You remember En-gedi?
Yes.
What do you remember there in En-gedi? That's where the Dead Sea is.
Yes.
In Israel, isn't it? It's En-gedi. Yeah? It's very salty. Let's hear.
And they shall be their fish shall be according to their kinds, as the fish of the great sea exceeding many. The fish represent those who are to be converted to the church,
River.
the river. And everything shall live whither the river cometh.
Right? That's verse 9, Ezekiel 47.
The ministry is symbolized as the fishers.
Right?
And Jesus said unto them, come ye after me, and I'll make you to become fishers of men.
In Mark 1 verse 17. Yeah?
The apostles at one time left the gospel net and ceased to be fishers of men, as they went fishing for gain.
Now, you remember Peter? Sometimes they went to fish thinking, we are wasting time following this man. We need our fish. He was a very good fisherman, so he enjoyed his hobby. Now he sneaked out the whole night looking for fish. Could they get it?
No.
Why didn't they get the fish? Now here. The apostles
at one time left the gospel net and ceased to be fishers of men, as they went fishing for gain. And that night they caught nothing.
Right?
But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore. Then Jesus said unto them, children, have ye any meat? They answered him, no.
No.
And he said unto them, cast
the
the net
net
on the right side of the ship, and
Yeah.
ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Success never fails when the command of the master is obeyed.
Right. So you say, you're coming 3 times a year to keep the feast. Success never fails when that command comes from God. If you see someone saying, I'm failing, there is no God in whatever he is doing. When God is there in whatever you do, success will never fail.
Amen.
Yeah, it will proceed. Like what Gamaliel said, if it is of God, it won't stop. But if it's not of God, it will diminish. I've seen some ministries, some reformers and whatever, As long as they are not from God, they go nowhere. But as long as it is from God, it will continue. And success never fails when the command of the master is obeyed. If the ministry had been constantly inquiring of Jesus where and how to cast the net, there would have been a multitude of fish converts and never a lack of meat. So that's why the cry of the loud cry, when it comes, the only time when things are a bit slow is in the sealing process, because I told you in the house of God, there's more controversy.
Yes.
But when it goes to the Gentiles, it will just fill up. There's no controversy. He says it will just say yes. But here, you have to work really, really hard to convince someone to keep the feast, to convince someone to eat the daily, to convince someone to keep the Sabbath, to convince, because there is controversy. That's why even Ezekiel said, "Son of man, I send you to the house of Israel." Hard-hearted, and their forehead is so hard. That's what he says in Ezekiel 3. But when it goes to the Gentiles, it's not hard. Yeah? So it's in stages. The sealing process is in the house of God. And I've heard people say, why are you after those who keep the Sabbath only, and you don't want those who don't keep the Sabbath? That's where the sealing process is. Why should I go where there is no sealing process? It says starts in the house of God and then goes to the Gentiles.
Yes.
Isn't it? Yes. So where do you want people to go? If you have an effort, do an effort to do these 3 seals. Yes. And make sure the house of God is sealed. Yes. Don't make an effort for those who are cheap. Those were easy. It's an easy, joy-free, because there's no argument. Do the effort with those who have references and the exegesis, and scatology, everything. They will refer, say, no, the verse doesn't mean that, when the verse means that. Yeah? Just a simple verse, they say, no, it's your understanding. When you say, thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not lie, and then you say, it's my understanding. What do you mean? You see, there's a lot of controversy. But when it goes to the Gentiles, there's no controversy. And Ezekiel 9 says, Ezekiel 3 says, if I send you there, you don't have a problem. You have a problem in the house of God? Yes. I'm just reading. Read. Ezekiel, son of man. Ezekiel 3. Son of man, I send you to the house of God. Start from chapter 2. Verse 3.
And he said unto me,
verse 3. Verse 3.
And he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel.
Where are we sent?
To the children of
To
Israel.
those who are keeping Sabbath, so that we can enjoy the sealing process. Debate about the seal. Gospels.
No.
This is time for a sealing program. You base on other gospels. It's an easy thing. People yawn and sleep. But go and start preaching the sealing process, and people will be aroused. It's quickened. The spirit is quickened. And
he said unto me, Son of man, I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation.
Do you see what he says? Described by God himself.
It's a rebellious nation.
Right. So that's where there is a lot of, tactics to bring it to the house of Israel.
To a rebellious nation that hath rebelled against me.
Right?
They and their fathers have transgressed against me, even
until this very day.
For they are impudent.
Listen to what we are.
They are impudent children and stiff-hearted.
Do you see that? And
I do send thee unto them.
Right?
And thou shalt say unto them, Thus saith the Lord.
Thus saith the Lord. Just say, Thus saith the Lord. Whether they follow or not. Your duty is, Thus saith the Lord. Whatever you want, just say, Thus saith the Lord. God says we do this and go. And
they, whether they will hear,
whether they hear
whether they will forbear,
or they
for their
forbear,
rebellious house.
because God knows them.
Yes.
God knows them.
Okay, verse 4. And he said unto me, Son of man, go get thee unto the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them.
Right.
For thou art not sent to a people of strange speech,
Not to the Gentiles
or
yet.
of an hard language.
You are not being
but
sent
of the
to the
house of
Gentiles.
Israel.
I don't know those who are being sent to the Gentiles. It's not the Gentiles yet. But to who? The very ones. And what?
Not so many people of a strange speech and of a hard language.
No.
Whose word thou canst not understand.
No.
Surely I sent unto thee. They would have hearkened unto thee.
If I sent you to those Gentiles, they were going to listen. But who doesn't?
But
The house of God, the house of Israel.
Will not hearken
They
unto
will
thee.
never.
For they will not hearken unto
So
thee.
when we say it, we really know exactly they will never. Whether you know what? Christ one day said, whether they hear someone coming from a grave, from the dead, to say, I have been asleep in the grave. Please keep the feast. They will just put an exegesis again. Exegesis. You know, when they came to see Lazarus, after he had been resurrected after 4 days in the grave, it says when they came, they were not only coming to see how powerful Christ was. No. They only wanted Lazarus to tell them, how is it when you are dead? So how hard people are. How hard people are. They don't want to hear the power from God that has been exercised by Christ to Lazarus to prove Christ was the Son of God. That has nothing to do with them. They only want to see Lazarus to tell them about death. How is it in the grave? And that message only does nothing to them. Does it make them receive eternal life? Nothing. But the thing that will make them receive eternal life is if Christ can wake people for 4 days they were in the grave, then he is the Son of God.
Amen.
They wanted only to believe that message, that it was Christ. Now, people enjoy these messages. You know, they only want to come and see, let's see what she's putting on today. Oh, how she's going to mention this topic. Nothing to do with the power of the message in their lives.
Yes.
You know? So this powerful river, anything that gets in contact with the river will heal.
Amen.
This message that we have of the sealing process is called medicine. Huh?
Yeah.
It's called medicine. It's a healing. The 3 seals, the daily, put in the fountain to the house of death. It makes us sealed with eternal life. I'll leave you to finish off the Ezekiel chapter 47. You know where to get it. And may God help us as we work to join this, to receive this fountain of David, which will let us spread to the Gentiles, so that there will be as many as the river which was seen flowing with trees on both sides. May God help the lesson. Let us pray.